There's a farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio, built sometime around 1840, and underneath it runs a series of clay pipes that have been doing the same job, quietly, without a single repair, for longer than anyone alive can remember. It's the middle of August. It's 91 degrees outside. The humidity is the kind that sits on your skin like a second shirt. And the air rising through the floorboards of that farmhouse is 55 degrees. No compressor, no refrigerant, no thermostat on the wall, no ductwork snaking through the attic. Just cool, dry air coming up from the ground the way it has every summer for nearly 2 centuries. The whole system cost about $300 in today's materials. The fan that moves the air draws fewer watts than the bulb in your porch light. And the reason you've never heard of it is honestly one of the more frustrating stories in American construction. It's not that this doesn't work. It works so well and costs so little that nobody in the cooling industry has ever had a reason to put it on a shelf. I'm not going to tell you this is some crazy new invention. It's not. The Persians were doing a version of this 2,400 years ago. They built massive domed structures called yakchals, literal ice houses, in the middle of deserts where summer temperatures hit 120 degrees. They stored ice through the entire season using nothing but underground thermal mass and smart airflow design. The Romans ran cooling channels beneath their villas. Korean builders engineered subfloor air passages called ondol systems over 3,000 years ago. Native Americans in the Southwest built semi-subterranean dwellings for 8 millennia. Every civilization that had to survive extreme heat arrived at the same answer independently. The Earth stores temperature, you just need a path to move it. That kind of convergence across cultures that never spoke to each other doesn't happen by accident. It happens because the physics is real. Let's get into it. Here's the number that changes everything. At 6 feet below the surface, the ground temperature stabilizes. It locks in and barely moves, regardless of what the season is doing above. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Department of Energy's own research facility, has mapped this city by city across the country. In Chicago, the soil sits at about 55 degrees year-round. Denver, 58. Atlanta, 62. Minneapolis, 52. Phoenix, 67. And in Holmes County, Ohio, right where those Amish farms sit, the ground holds steady between 54 and 56 degrees every single day of every single year. The physics behind it is straightforward once you hear it. Soil is heavy, between 100 and 125 pounds per cubic foot, depending on composition and moisture. Moving that kind of mass, even 1 degree, takes enormous energy, 20 to 30 BTUs per cubic foot. When summer heat bakes the surface, it begins sinking into the earth, but it moves slowly, 6 to 8 weeks to penetrate just 6 feet. By the time the heat from July arrives at depth, it's already September up top. The season has turned, the ground never catches up. It's the largest thermal battery on the planet, sitting underneath every house in America, doing absolutely nothing, because nobody told you it was there. You already know this, by the way. You've felt it your whole life, and just never had a name for it. That cool rush when you step into a basement on a hot day. The temperature inside a cave that feels the same in January as it does in July. The chill of a root cellar. That's not magic, that's thermal mass and seasonal lag, working exactly the way they've always worked. The Amish just figured out how to pipe it into a living room. Here's how they do it. Every farm in Holmes County has a root cellar dug at least 10 feet deep. No insulation, no mechanical cooling of any kind. The soil keeps it between 32 and 40 degrees year-round. That's cold enough to store produce through an entire winter. Then there are the spring houses, small stone or timber buildings constructed directly over natural springs, where groundwater flows at a constant 54 to 56 degrees. The water moves under the floor, the building stays between 50 and 58 all summer. The Amish in Lancaster County and Holmes County use them to keep dairy and meat fresh without a single watt of electricity for generations. I stood inside one of those spring houses on that 91-degree day. The air hit me like walking into a walk-in cooler. At a restaurant, I could see my breath. There's something almost unsettling about it. Standing in a tiny building with no electricity, no visible technology of any kind, and your breath is fogging in August. It rearranges something in your thinking about what's actually possible. But the system that matters most here is what the Amish call the breath of the floor. Clay pipes buried beneath the foundations of their farmhouses. Air enters from outside through an intake, travels underground through those pipes, and rises through the floorboards cooled by the earth. The USDA documented this system in a manual published in 1903, specifically noting clay pipe installations in Holmes County, Ohio. That document is over 120 years old. The system it describes is still running under Amish homes today, unchanged. And here's the part that keeps sitting with me. The Amish who settled Ohio and Pennsylvania came from Germany and Switzerland. Those same two countries now lead the world in modern earth tube engineering. Germany has hundreds of monitored residential earth tube installations, tracked by the Passive House Institute in Darmstadt. Austria requires thermal labyrinth analysis for any building over 1,000 square meters. Switzerland has a 15-year longitudinal study from ETH Zurich, one of the most respected engineering universities on the planet, showing zero degradation in system performance over the entire monitoring period. None. The knowledge the Amish carried from Europe 200 years ago is the same knowledge Europe rediscovered with modern sensors and data logging. The circle closed over there, but America never got the memo, and there's a reason for that. In 1902, a man named Willis Carrier designed a mechanical system to control humidity at the Sackett and Wilhelms printing plant in Brooklyn. His problem wasn't heat. It was moisture warping the paper and ruining the color register on prints. The machine was never designed for human comfort. By the 1920s, the Carrier Corporation launched a marketing campaign called Weathermaker that repositioned air conditioning as a symbol of modern American progress. Their materials, and I've read the original copies, explicitly labeled passive cooling techniques as primitive and unsanitary. Then, in 1930, a Carrier engineering manual included a line that quietly buried 5,000 years of proven technique. It read, "Earth contact cooling is suitable only for cellars and food storage." One sentence, one corporate manual, and an entire field of knowledge vanished from American building practice. It wasn't a conspiracy, it was economics. The first model mechanical codes were drafted in the late 1920s, with heavy participation from HVAC industry representatives. Passive cooling alternatives weren't banned outright. They were simply absent from the document. If the code